If you could dive deeper into the oceans of the dinosaur age, you would enter a world almost no sunlight could reach. A silent, dark environment where pressure squeezes the water like an invisible force. This is the deep ocean, one of the least understood environments in Earth's history. Even today, in 2026, humans have explored more of the moon's surface than the deepest parts of our own oceans. Now imagine what this mysterious world looked like 70 to 100 million years ago. A time when the planet was warmer, the seas were higher, and strange creatures ruled the underwater world. Down here, sunlight fades into darkness. The bright blue water of the surface turns into a dim twilight. Then finally, complete blackness. But life does not disappear. Instead, it adapts. Strange glowing organisms drift through the darkness. Some produce flashes of light to communicate. Others glow softly to lure prey closer. This eerie underwater light show is called bioluminescence, and it likely existed even in the prehistoric oceans. But not everything in these waters is small. Something large moves silently through the darkness. A long shadow glides past rocky seafloor ridges. This is one of the fastest hunters in the prehistoric oceans, the legendary Ichthyosaurus. At first glance it looks strangely familiar. Its body resembles a dolphin. Its snout is long and narrow. Its powerful tail propels it through the water with incredible speed. But unlike dolphins, this creature is a reptile, a distant relative of animals that once walked on land. Over millions of years, evolution transformed Ichthyosaurus into one of the most efficient swimmers of the ancient seas. Some species could grow over 30 feet long, and their enormous eyes were among the largest in the animal kingdom. Why such giant eyes? Because vision was essential in the dim, shadowy depths of the prehistoric ocean. These predators hunted squid-like creatures, fish, and anything else they could catch in the dark water. Yet even these powerful swimmers were not the most fascinating animals living in the oceans of the dinosaur age, because the prehistoric seas were also filled with creatures that look almost alien. For example, drifting slowly through the water were ancient cephalopods, relatives of modern squid and octopuses. Some had long tentacles, others had spiral shells. These animals were the ancestors of modern ocean intelligence, and they were everywhere. At certain times of the year, billions of them may have moved through the oceans together, a living cloud of tentacles and shells drifting through the water. For predators, it was a massive feast. But the prehistoric ocean had another incredible feature that most people never imagine. Gigantic underwater mountain chains, just like mountains on land. The seafloor was filled with enormous ridges, cliffs, and volcanic vents. Hot mineral-rich water erupted from cracks in the ocean floor. Even in complete darkness, life gathered around these vents. Strange bacteria thrived in the heat. Small creatures fed on them. Larger animals arrived to hunt. Those creatures, an entire hidden ecosystem, existed in places where sunlight had never reached. This means the oceans of the dinosaur age were not just one environment. They were many worlds layered on top of each other. Sunlit tropical seas near the surface, predator-filled hunting zones in midwater, and mysterious ecosystems deep in the darkness below. But despite all their power and diversity, these ancient oceans were not permanent. Earth itself was constantly changing. Continents moved slowly across the planet. Ocean currents shifted, and new species began evolving. Over millions of years, many of the giant marine reptiles slowly disappeared. Their reign over the seas began to fade. But nature never leaves a throne empty for long. As these ancient rulers vanished, new animals began to rise. Sharks grew larger and more powerful. Early whales would eventually appear millions of years later, and the oceans slowly transformed into the world we recognize today. Yet the prehistoric oceans left behind something incredible. Fossils hidden in rock layers across the planet, from deserts in North America to mountains in Europe to remote regions of South America. Scientists continue to uncover the skeletons of these ancient sea monsters. Each discovery reveals another piece of a lost world. A world where oceans were ruled by reptiles the size of buses, where underwater battles between giants were part of everyday life, and where evolution experimented with some of the strangest creatures that have ever lived. The next time you stand beside the ocean, looking out across endless waves, remember this. Beneath those waters lies a history far older than humanity. A history written by creatures that ruled the seas long before the first humans ever appeared. The oceans may look peaceful today, but millions of years ago, they were the domain of monsters, and the echoes of that ancient world are still hidden beneath the waves. Far from the sunlight near the surface, the prehistoric ocean becomes darker, colder, and far more mysterious. Down here, the water is thick with drifting particles. Visibility drops. The blue glow of the upper ocean slowly fades into a dim, shadowy world. Yet life is everywhere. Ancient fish glide silently through the water. Strange shelled creatures drift through slow ocean currents. And hidden within this underwater wilderness are predators built for one purpose only: hunting. But not all predators in these ancient seas relied on brute force. Some relied on something far stranger. Imagine you are swimming through this prehistoric ocean. The water around you feels calm. Nothing seems dangerous, but suddenly you notice movement ahead. A long shape gliding slowly through the water. At first, it looks impossible. Its neck stretches forward like a living spear. Its body follows behind like the hull of a submarine. This is one of the strangest creatures evolution has ever produced. The legendary Elasmosaurus. Unlike the massive predators that rely on power, this hunter uses precision. Its neck alone can reach over 20 feet long. That means its head can strike prey while the rest of its body stays hidden at a distance. Imagine a school of fish moving peacefully through the water. They see nothing dangerous nearby, but suddenly a head shoots forward from seemingly nowhere. In a split second, a fish disappears. The body of Elasmosaurus barely moves. Just a lightning-fast strike from that impossibly long neck. Evolution turned this animal into one of the most efficient ambush hunters of the prehistoric seas. Yet even creatures like this had enemies, because deeper in the ocean, another predator dominates the food chain. A hunter built not for speed, not for stealth, but for overwhelming power. Its skull alone can grow more than 2 meters long, Its jaws can generate crushing forces strong enough to break bone. And when it attacks, it doesn't simply bite, it destroys. This predator is the terrifying Plesiosaurus. If the ocean were a battlefield, this creature would be its ultimate weapon. Unlike long-necked hunters, Plesiosaurus has a massive head and a powerful, muscular body. Its flippers drive it through the water with explosive bursts of speed, and its mouth is filled with enormous cone-shaped teeth, some nearly the size of bananas. These teeth are not designed for slicing. They are designed for gripping and crushing. When this predator closes its jaws around prey, escape is impossible. Fossil evidence suggests that these creatures hunted everything they could. Overpower large fish, marine reptiles, even animals nearly their own size. In fact, paleontologists have discovered fossils showing bite marks from Plesiosaurus embedded in the bones of other sea monsters, which means battles between giant predators were not rare. They were part of everyday life in the prehistoric oceans. Picture the scene: a quiet ancient sea. Schools of fish scatter suddenly. Something massive bursts upward from the depths. Water erupts into violent motion. Two prehistoric titans collide beneath the surface. Jaws snap. Flippers thrash. The ocean churns into chaos. These underwater battles may have been some of the most violent predator encounters in Earth's history. But even the most powerful hunters in these seas were only part of a much larger ecosystem. Because above them, below them, and all around them, thousands of other species filled the prehistoric oceans. Ancient sharks cruised through open water. Massive sea turtles glided through warm tropical currents. Enormous schools of fish moved across the oceans like living storms. The prehistoric seas were not empty wilderness. They were vibrant, complex ecosystems filled with life at every level. Yet, despite all this diversity, despite all the power of these incredible predators, the entire world they lived in was approaching a moment that would change everything. A single event that would transform the oceans forever. Because somewhere far beyond the atmosphere of Earth, something was already moving through space. Something that would eventually bring the age of dinosaurs and their terrifying oceans to an end. And when that moment arrived, the seas themselves would never be the same again. Imagine standing on the edge of a vast ocean. The year is 20 to 6. Waves roll calmly toward the shore. Seagulls circle overhead. Somewhere in the distance, a whale surfaces and disappears beneath the water again. To us, the ocean feels mysterious, but mostly familiar. We believe we understand it. We map its currents. We track its creatures. We send submarines into its deepest trenches. But if you could travel back in time, not thousands of years, but tens of millions of years, you would discover something shocking. The oceans of the dinosaur age were nothing like the oceans we know today. In fact, if a human somehow found themselves swimming in those ancient seas, they would be entering one of the most dangerous ecosystems that has ever existed on Earth. To understand why, we need to travel back to a time when the planet looked completely different. A time when dinosaurs dominated the land. Massive predators stalked forests the size of continents. Gigantic herbivores moved in herds across prehistoric plains. But while dinosaurs ruled the land, The oceans belonged to something else entirely, something older, something perfectly adapted for life in the water. Because the rulers of the prehistoric seas were not dinosaurs at all. They were marine reptiles, creatures that had returned to the ocean after their ancestors once walked on land. Over millions of years, evolution reshaped their bodies. Legs became flippers. Bodies became streamlined. Tails grew powerful enough to drive them through the water at incredible speeds. These animals evolved into some of the most terrifying hunters that have ever lived. And the oceans they lived in were enormous. During the age of dinosaurs, Earth was warmer than it is today. There were no permanent ice caps at the poles. Sea levels were dramatically higher. Huge parts of modern continents were covered by shallow tropical seas. In fact, one of the most remarkable oceans in Earth's history once cut directly through North America. Scientists call it the Western Interior Seaway. This ancient ocean stretched from the Arctic Ocean all the way down to what is now the Gulf of Mexico. For millions of years, it divided North America into two massive islands. And inside these warm, shallow waters, life exploded in extraordinary ways. Massive coral ecosystems formed beneath the surface. Schools of fish moved through the water in numbers so large they darkened entire regions of the sea. And drifting through the currents were some of the most recognizable fossils from the dinosaur age. Spiral-shelled creatures known as ammonites. At first glance they might look harmless, beautiful, shells twisting outward in perfect spirals. But in the prehistoric ocean, even these creatures were part of a deadly food chain. Because every level of life in these waters was connected to something larger and more dangerous. And somewhere beyond the edge of the reef, something massive is moving. Imagine floating at the surface of this ancient sea. Sunlight penetrates the clear blue water beneath you. Fish dart through beams of light. The ocean seems peaceful. Until suddenly, the fish disappear. The water grows strangely quiet, and then you notice something beneath you, a shadow. At first it looks distant, but it's growing larger, much larger. Whatever is moving below you is not a fish. It's not a shark. In fact, sharks of the dinosaur era were far smaller than the monsters that ruled these waters. This shadow belongs to something else entirely, something that evolved specifically to dominate the prehistoric seas, because beneath the surface of this ocean lives one of the most powerful marine predators that has ever existed. The legendary Mosasaurus. This animal could grow over 50 feet long, longer than many modern buses. Its body moved through the water with terrifying efficiency. Its tail generated massive bursts of speed, and its jaws were built like biological bear traps. Rows of curved teeth lined its mouth, perfectly designed for gripping slippery prey. But the most frightening detail of all lies inside its throat. Hidden behind the main set of jaws was a second row of teeth, smaller but razor-sharp. Once prey entered the mouth of a Mosasaurus, escape was almost impossible. These predators were not just hunters, they were apex predators, the absolute rulers of their ecosystem. Fossils show that they hunted fish, sharks, sea turtles, and even other marine reptiles. Nothing in their world was safe, yet even in an ocean ruled by giants like this, the story becomes even stranger. because deeper in the prehistoric seas lived creatures that looked almost impossible. Reptiles with necks longer than a school bus. Predators with skulls built like crushing machines. Hunters that could attack from the darkness far below the sunlight. In the next part of this journey, we're diving deeper into the oceans of the dinosaur age, where evolution created some of the strangest and most powerful animals that have ever lived. Creatures so bizarre, they almost seem like something from science fiction. And once you see them, you'll realize that the ancient oceans may have been even more terrifying than the world of dinosaurs on land.